Have you ever stopped to think if the car you finance every month is really worth what you're paying? Or if, deep down, most of the money is going to something no one has properly explained to you? This question seems simple, but it carries an uncomfortable truth. Most people think that financing a car is just about making the payment fit their budget, adjusting the budget here and there, and that's it. But there's a silent trap within this process, a math that almost no one sees. And that's precisely why so many live strapped for cash, suffocated, and trapped in debts that seem never-ending. Maybe you've already experienced this. Looking at the car in the garage and realizing that it depreciates every month, while the debt remains almost intact. Or that strange feeling of paying, and yet nothing seems to change. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might truly surprise you. The fact is, you're not just buying a car when you accept financing. You're buying interest. Disguised interest, hidden interest, interest that no one explains at the time of signing. And the finance industry knows this. It knows that all it takes is offering an installment that fits your budget to convince you to take on a debt that, in practice, costs much more than the value of the vehicle. That's why many people work all month and feel like their money disappears without a trace. A good portion is being devoured by these hidden costs that are part of modern financing. And that's where the most important point of this video comes in. Understanding the trap of payment terms. 24x, 48x, 72x. Three numbers that seem like just payment options, but that actually hide completely different realities. Realities that can leave you trapped for years and turn an ordinary car into one of the worst investments of your life. The 4-20-10 rule exists precisely to avoid this type of situation, but almost no one follows it. And not because it's complicated, but because no one explains its impact clearly and directly. When you ignore this rule, you give up the most important part of your financial freedom, the ability to control your own money. That's why so many people end up strangled by their car, trapped in endless installments, believing they're getting a good deal when, in reality, they're just multiplying the final value without realizing it. If this sounds familiar to you, don't worry, you're not alone. And that's exactly why this video exists. Today, you're going to see what almost no one dares to show. We're going to reveal the real numbers, without makeup, without tricks, and without beating around the bush. We're going to reveal how much a car really costs when financed in 24, 48, and 72 installments, and why these numbers can completely change the way you make consumer decisions. Prepare yourself for a hard but necessary truth. Now I want to take you a little deeper, because understanding this math is the first step to getting your money out of the path of interest and back into your own hands. And as you begin to see this math more clearly, perhaps even remembering some personal situation you've experienced or are experiencing now, I want to ask you something from the heart. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. It could be an experience with financing, a frustration, a question, or even that feeling of, I never stop to think about this. Your voice matters, and when you comment, you not only participate in this conversation, you help other people going through the same situation realize they are not alone. This space is a community, and each comment opens a door for more people to awaken to these truths that almost no one teaches. And since we're talking about making more conscious decisions, go ahead and leave a like now. It seems small, but it makes a huge difference. When you like the video, YouTube understands this topic is important and starts showing it to more people who may be trapped in this same financial cycle. It's literally a gesture of seconds that helps this message go further than we imagine. And if you feel that this type of content can really change your relationship with money, with choices, and with financial freedom, subscribe to the channel. That way you continue walking with me in each new video, building knowledge and clarity step by step. Your participation here is what sustains this work. It's what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content that honestly should be basic, but is almost never taught to anyone. And while you do that, I want to continue guiding you through this journey. Because after understanding this first part, there's something even deeper about these deadlines, these interest rates, and the real impact each choice has on your wallet. And that's exactly where the conversation starts to get even more revealing. When we would consider the first scenario, the 24-month financing, everything seems lighter than it actually is. It's almost as if the bank knows exactly how to package this decision in a pretty box, with a ribbon that says, lower interest, pay quickly. This is the smart choice. And many people fall for this feeling of victory because the installment, at first glance, seems to fit the budget. Not completely, but with some effort. It's possible to adjust one thing here, cut another there, and the purchase happens. But it is precisely at this point that the math begins to reveal the hidden truth behind this supposed advantage. Imagine a car worth $100,000. Most people enter this negotiation with a minimal down payment, sometimes less than 10%, because they believe that the important thing is just to slightly reduce the installment. But even with a short term like 24 months, the interest rate transforms that $100,000 into something much larger. The final sum can easily exceed $115,000 or $118,000, depending on the interest rate applied. It seems like a small amount when said like that, but when you realize that more than $15,000 of that total is literally money evaporated in interest, money that doesn't become assets, doesn't become investments, doesn't become anything at all, the perception begins to change. And it doesn't stop there. When the monthly payment starts consuming 20%, 25%, or even 30% of income, this financing ceases to be a simple purchase and becomes a financial prison. The person works, pays, strives, and yet feels that there is never room to build something real, because most of the budget goes directly to a debt that exists only because the down payment was low, and the 20-40-10 rule was completely ignored. That's where the impact of mindset comes in. Many people believe that, because it's a short term, they are getting an excellent deal. But without the 20% down payment, without clear limits, and without respecting their own financial reality, this 24-month financing becomes just an illusion of efficiency. The person thinks they are saving money when in reality they are overburdening themselves. They think they are choosing the most responsible path, but end up only assuming a cost that wouldn't need to exist. This distortion is so common that many people don't even realize how much more they are working for the car than for themselves. And when that realization starts to sink in, a kind of inner discomfort arises, almost like opening a Bauhaus door you've always avoided. But this revelation is necessary because it opens the door to transformation, to new decisions, and to a clearer financial journey. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject because it's precisely when we understand this first scenario that we begin to realize how other options, those seemingly gentler ones, can hide even heavier consequences. Before continuing, comment below, that makes sense to me. When you enter the 48-month scenario, everything seems even more comfortable than in the first one. The installment decreases. The salesperson smiles with that rehearsed confidence, and the feeling of, now it fits in my budget, begins to gain strength. This is the financing that most captivates people without them realizing it, because visually it seems balanced. It doesn't weigh as heavily as a 24-month plan. It doesn't scare you as much as the idea of 72 months, and it creates a false sense of control. But when you start looking behind the scenes of this type of decision, the hidden truth begins to emerge. The car remains the same example of $100,000, but now, with a small down payment and a longer term, the total financed amount grows silently. In many cases, a 48-month financing transforms that $100,000 into $130,000, sometimes $135,000, depending on the interest rate and the conditions imposed. And that's precisely where the real impact lies. Almost $35,000 can simply vanish into thin air, disappearing as interest without generating any kind of wealth or real transformation in the financial life of the buyer. Even so, the person leaves the dealership feeling like they did their best. After all, the payment became manageable, not a squeezing compared to a shorter term. But this feeling is only a temporary relief, because when you observe what happens month after month, you realize that while the debt slowly decreases, the car's value plummets. In the first 2 years, it may already be worth $70,000 or less, while the outstanding balance remains close to $90,000. It's almost like running on a treadmill that never slows down. The person pays, and still feels like they're always one step behind. This is the point where many people think they're winning, but the math is laughing at them behind their backs. And that's no exaggeration. It's a harsh but necessary revelation because it directly affects the mindset of those trying to balance their accounts and build stability. The 48-month payment plan doesn't immediately deplete your budget. It drains it gradually, a little here, a little there. It's like a constant drip. You think you can manage until you realize you've lost more than you imagined. And this creates an emotional cycle of frustration, exhaustion, and a sense of injustice. The person looks at the car, looks at the bill, and thinks, it wasn't supposed to be like this. But all of this becomes all too clear when you understand that this choice, although common, wasn't made based on solid principles like the 24-10 rule. It was made based on the hope that a smaller payment would mean an easier life. And that's precisely why so many people feel trapped, even without realizing they entered this prison through a seemingly logical decision. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject because when you understand the weight of this 48-month scenario, you begin to realize how the next choices can be even more dangerous, especially when the time frame increases and the illusion grows along with it. Before continuing, write in the comments, I'm on this journey too. When we enter the 72-month scenario, the conversation changes completely. There's no longer any illusion of balance, nor the feeling of, now it fits in my budget. What exists is the financing method that most captivates people in Brazil and the United States, precisely because it seems to be the easiest, most accessible, most possible path. But in practice, it's precisely within this time frame that the hidden truth of financing emerges in full force. A car costing $100,000, financed over 72 months with a low down payment, easily exceeds $150,000 in final value. And it's not uncommon to surpass $160,000 or even more, depending on the interest rate. It's as if the person is paying for 2.5 cars, but only driving one, and a car that depreciates faster than the debt can be reduced. This creates a financial abyss that traps the person for years, draining energy, time, and money without them realizing the size of the chain they've tied around their own feet. And the 6-year trap is even crueler when you consider the emotional and practical impact of this choice. By the 3rd year, the car is already worth half of what it was when it left the dealership. This is natural in the market, due to depreciation, the rules of the game. But what is unnatural and devastating is the fact that, in that same 3rd year, the debt is still almost entirely outstanding. The outstanding balance is still there, firm, heavy, insistent, demanding payments every month that seem to change nothing. It's as if there's a complete disconnect between the value of the asset and the size of the debt. And while this happens, half of each installment is purely interest. You're not reducing the debt. You're feeding the system, paying to keep the wheel turning. It's a cycle that undermines motivation, takes your breath away, and transforms the relationship with money into something tiring and frustrating. And that's why so many people feel trapped, even when they keep paying on time. Because it's not just about the car, it's about freedom, about having control, about making better decisions, about navigating a financial journey with more clarity and less burden. The 4-20-10 rule exists precisely to prevent someone from falling into this scenario. It wasn't created to impose limits, but to protect. It's not a car rule, it's a rule of life, of autonomy, of mindset. When you ignore this rule, you end up entering a labyrinth that seems easy at first, but which later on proves to be one of the most expensive and exhausting decisions someone can make. And when you look at those 6 years honestly, you realize that the 72-month financing isn't just a contract. It's an unequal exchange, an agreement where you give too much and receive too little. That's why so many people wake up in the middle of this process with the feeling of having lost something important. It wasn't just money, it was time, it was energy, it was peace. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding this 3rd scenario opens up a revelation that completely transforms how you view consumer decisions. Before continuing, comment below. That makes sense to me. When we reach this point in the conversation, it becomes impossible to ignore the weight of decisions that seem small but shape our entire financial journey. And this is where the 4-20-10 rule comes in. As a game changer, not as an imposition, but as a tool for freedom. Many people have never heard of it, and when they hear about it for the first time, they think it's complicated, rigid, and out of touch with reality. But in fact, it's simple, direct, and created precisely to prevent a person from falling into these traps that drain energy, time, and money. The rule is almost an antidote to the impulsiveness that the market constantly encourages. It starts by demanding something that seems difficult, but is liberating: a down payment of at least 20%. This isn't just about reducing the monthly payment. It's about ensuring you don't take on more financing than your own life can handle. It's a cut of excess, a filter, a protection. Then comes the time frame, a maximum of 4 years. This is where the mindset truly changes, because when you limit the time, you limit the interest, you limit the risk, you limit the emotional weight of the debt. 4 years is a period that still allows for planning, still allows you to breathe, still allows you to build other things at the same time. And the third point is the most neglected. The installment cannot exceed 10% of your income, not to restrict dreams, but to prevent them from turning into nightmares. When an installment fits within this limit, it doesn't suffocate you. It doesn't invade the space of other needs. It doesn't prevent you from living life with some lightness. The car ceases to be a burden and returns to being what it should have been from the beginning: a means, not an end. And the most impressive thing is seeing this rule working in practice. Imagine someone buying the same $100,000 car, but following these 3 pillars. With a 20% down payment, the financing drops to $80,000. With a 4-year term and lower interest rate, the total amount paid drops drastically, sometimes only slightly above the cash price, and not tens of thousands of Rs more. The monthly payment becomes smaller, predictable, aligned with the person's life. And this reduces not only interest, but stress, anxiety, sleepless nights, that feeling of carrying an emotional weight every month. It's pure transformation, because it's not about buying a cheap car. It's about buying peace, buying autonomy, buying peaceful nights. And nobody talks about this because it doesn't make them profitable. It makes you profitable. When you understand this mechanism, you realize it was never just a matter of mathematics. It was always about freedom, about making choices that build, not choices that erode, about having the clarity to see beyond the shop windows, beyond the pretty installments, beyond the rehearsed phrases. Because now that you've seen the real number, now that you've compared the scenarios, now that you understand how each decision opens or closes paths, do you still think that financing in 72 installments is just a small payment? Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject because there's an end point in this journey of understanding that completely changes how you view your own money. Before continuing, leave a comment below. I'm on this journey too. If you've made it this far, it's because this topic has truly touched upon an important part of your financial life, and that says a lot about the kind of path you want to build from here on out. So, before we wrap up, I want to ask you something in a very light-hearted way, as if continuing a conversation that will still yield much more. If this content brought you clarity, opened your eyes, or simply made you rethink some decisions, please subscribe to the channel. It's not just about the number. It's because each video I bring here was made precisely for that, to deliver real value, to help you make decisions with more awareness and less burden. And when you subscribe, this exchange becomes even stronger. Take this opportunity to also leave a like, because that shows me that our conversation made sense, that this journey is making a difference for you. And if you really walked with me until the end, leave a comment with the phrase, "I'm with you until the end." This is the simplest way for me to know who is truly committed, who is absorbing each step and building a more solid mindset alongside me. And of course, if you want to continue advancing in this transformation, there's a video here that complements everything we've discussed and further deepens this vision of smart financial choices. Click and continue with me there. The conversation isn't over.